Good afternoon and welcome back to Law and Crime Trial Network. I'm your host, Brian Buckmeyer. Now we've got a great case for you out of Ohio. It's great in the sense that it gives us so much to deal with on both sides, that being the defense and the prosecution. We're going to go straight into court and look at some of the testimony that we heard earlier today, where the defendant, Skylar, or Brooke Skylar, Richardson, was actually seen in the interrogation speaking to the officers about what had occurred when she had given birth. So I'm joined here today with Michael Koribanics and Mike Trianos, the M&M of the Law and Crime Network. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
So we'll start with you, Mike, or Koribanics. So we'll go last names just to make it easy, all right? We're listening to this interrogation, confession, maybe false confession. I mean, it can fit in different categories. As you're listening to it, what jumps up at you?
Well, I've heard this confession. I was watching earlier today, and this confession bothers me because I feel that the investigator in this matter is being deceptive. He's not telling her the truth, although the Supreme Court has said basically law enforcement could lie. But when you start saying it's not your fault, nobody thinks you did this, then you're really subterfuging the Miranda warnings. Miranda tells you you're in trouble. If you're going to speak, it could be used against you. And I think this, especially when the defendant is this young and has undergone such a traumatic experience herself. So I have a lot of problems with this confession.
Triano, same question for you. With this interrogation, let's call it that, because I know what it is, whether it be a confession, false confession, fed or the story, that's kind of up for the jury to decide. But for this interrogation, what do you see might be wrong or right here?
Well, I agree with the other Michael that it is problematic in the way that he's leading it, if you will. And that's where really my problem is with this is police lie. We're aware of that. They're allowed to lie in order to get or coerce confessions. And that's something that, unfortunately, as defense attorneys and the public at large, we have to accept. But what I'm really having issues with is the leading questions that he's asking her, especially in a situation like this where potentially she is telling the truth, and he, quite frankly, doesn't necessarily know all the facts. It's not as if this is already on video and he's watched it and he's trying to catch the suspect in a lie. He's really not certain of what happened, and quite frankly, no one really is at this point of the trial. And I don't like the leading questions that he's asking her. I would prefer that she provided more details from her own mouth instead of the words that he's describing to her, and she's essentially parroting back.
Yeah. Now, Koribanics, she's 18, and 18 is a strange age, because in one sense you could say you can fight for your country, you can vote, but you're still a teenager, and no matter what you are, male, female, whatever, your brain is not fully developed. No, so you're kind of a child, kind of not. So how does that really work when it comes to interrogating?
Well, I think the law is what it says, but I think it draws a bright light line in the sand. But the bottom line is you still have a jury up there. And, you know, just the graphics of this, the eye, what catches the eye here is, I mean, when you see her two lawyers speaking like we just saw, she looks like a little girl. She looks like a little girl. I think the jury gets that. And, you know, I don't think there's anything more traumatic. I mean, I can't speak for a woman because I'm not, but to go through childbirth alone, like she said, to have obviously some sort of complication, it just seems to me that I don't know if really the prosecution made it's not only the law, but you have to make some social, and you have discretions, and I just don't know if this was really the right case to bring to trial.
I would agree. Let's take a look again at the interrogation where she's talking about burying the child's body. So there you have, it's a very interesting concept. We were talking here in the studio. I'll start with you, Koribanics, because we're talking about, I mean, the first question that came into me, she's 18 years old in Warren County. I believe that's between Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio. First of all, what is her sex education background for her to be knowing this? It seems like she's being fed what to say rather than coming up with it herself.
Well, as the other Mike said earlier, this is problematic because of the suggestive nature. I mean, basically, you have an 18-year-old kid. I don't care what the law says, she's a kid. And you have an experienced, trained detective who probably knows the read techniques, all these techniques to extract the facts he wants. And he's basically leading her. And she's just agreeing, and she keeps asking, when can I go?
Yeah, and Mike Triano, we'll come back to you with this one. Obviously, we're showing it in clips. Obviously, this interrogation was much longer. I believe in the beginning of this interrogation, she's adamantly saying, I didn't do it. She was stillborn. The thing that caught my eye in an earlier clip was she said that the baby was born without an umbilical cord. And then now she's gotten to the point she's like, you know what, whatever you say, if you say the sky is orange, I'll say the sky is orange. She's just regurgitating everything this guy's saying. Can you actually use this in court and get a conviction?
Well, I think you can use this in court and get a conviction just because of the emotional nature of it. So I agree that she's a very young lady, but if I'm on the other side of the fence and playing the prosecutor in this case, I'm trying to force into a reality to the jurors here and basically saying in 2019, what kid at her age doesn't have a sex education, maybe more so than we would like to believe. And sure, saying things that aren't scientifically or factually correct, that a baby was born with an umbilical cord, or I've personally never heard of that, can make you pause and question it. But I think it's just going to come down to whether the fact that they believe that this girl was heartless, if you will, and if the baby truly was born stillborn, that why wasn't she going to reach out and call the paramedics, the police, somebody? It's just heartbreaking, and it's a head scratcher for any juror with life experience, whether or not they've brought a child into this world.
Yeah, it's definitely heartbreaking because at the end of the day, I know we're talking about this from a legal perspective, whether or not testimony can come in, how she's being interrogated. At the end of the day, a child had lost her life. And then the question is, like, what should justice be? It's going to be interesting to find out more as we dive into this case. But in order to find out more, you got to come back here, the Law and Crime Trial Network.